For the past week, the country's focus has understandably been on the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and the seemingly endless fallout from it. But with a flurry of other decisions at the end of its term, this deeply unpopular, deeply conservative Supreme Court reshaped American life in all sorts of ways by deciding that a high school football coach had the right to pray on the field after games. And with taxpayer money being able to be used to pay for students to attend religious schools, the court raised new questions about the dividing line between church and state. The court ruled that a New York law that placed strict limits on carrying guns outside of the home was unconstitutional, in a monumental victory for gun rights advocates and Second Amendment acolytes. The court ruled to protect police officers so they cannot be sued under federal civil rights law for failing to administer your Miranda rights. The court revived a Republican-drawn voting map in Louisiana, which was struck down by a federal judge for packing black voters into one district. And in a setback in the fight against climate change, the Supreme Court sided with conservative states and fossil fuel companies and decided to limit the EPA's regulation of carbon dioxide emissions from power plants. So, to recap, the Supreme Court has handed down decisions that limit bodily autonomy, allow prayer in school, allow taxpayer funding for religious schools, expand gun rights, gut Miranda rights, marginalize black voters in Louisiana, and last but certainly not least, worsen our climate crisis. Other than that, as they say, nothing to see here. As my colleague Saha Kapoor put it, the recent series of Supreme Court decisions point to why conservatives fought so hard to create this 6-3 majority. Democrats may control the White House and Congress, but lately, Republicans have achieved more far-reaching policy victories, and this court is just getting started. Joining me now is Ian Millhiser. He's a senior correspondent for Vox. He's also the author of the book, The Agenda: How a Republican Supreme Court is Reshaping America. Ian, I don't know if it's reshaping or has reshaped, kind of terrified to see what's coming down the pipeline. We'll drill down on some of the decisions in a minute, but as you reflect on this Supreme Court term as a whole, what are some of the through lines you've been picking up on? I mean, what's the overall takeaway from this recent term?
Well, the thing that scares me the most, the question I ask over and over again as I cover the court is, are they applying an internally consistent set of rules that may be different than the rules that I learned in law school, but are still rules? Or are they just going for it? Is it just will to power and nothing else on this court? And I am very worried it is the latter. I mean, you talked about the Dobbs case, the case overruling Roe v. Wade. That was only the second scariest abortion decision from this term. There was a case earlier called Whole Women's Health v. Jackson, which essentially said that states can they can nullify any constitutional right at all, any right that they want, so long as they use private bounty hunters to enforce the law that overrides that right and not, some other method. This EPA case, they relied on this thing called the major questions doctrine to strike down these EPA rules. Where does the major questions doctrine come from? It comes from nowhere. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in any statute. It is something that the justices made up in order to give themselves a veto power over any federal regulation. In the praying church case that you mentioned, they literally made up fake facts in that case. So, the facts of the case was that there was this coach who wanted to make a big show of doing very public prayers. He would go to the center of the 50-yard line. He was surrounded by players. He was surrounded by the media. There are pictures of him being surrounded by players in the media. And the Supreme Court described this as a quiet, private prayer. So what I'm worried about isn't just that they're handing down decisions that I disagree with as a policy matter. I worry that they aren't following anything that resembles the rule of law and that they're sometimes being fundamentally dishonest about what they are doing.
And can we wax philosophical for a second? The conservative arm of, for example, the judicial activism, people, they all say no judicial activism, right? You can't have judicial activists on the bench. And yet, from what you've just told us in the last few minutes, your recitations made it very clear that the current Supreme Court conservative majority is frankly just doing whatever the hell it wants to do. The problem is, obviously, Ian, who's regulating them, right? There's no recourse. We used to always say you could end up in front of the Supreme Court and you would get that ultimate decision, so keep on going. But when you have a hijacked judicial system, what recourse or what relief can be sought against these types of judicial activist rulings that we're getting from the Supreme Court?
So there are things that could be done if there were the votes in Congress. So, the Constitution says there shall be a Supreme Court. It doesn't say how many justices should serve on the Supreme Court. Congress could pass a bill today saying there's now 15 seats on the Supreme Court. President Biden would nominate 6 people to fill the new vacant seats. And then there would be, I guess, a 9-6 Democratic majority on the Supreme Court. So that would be totally lawful, totally constitutional. I very much doubt that there's the votes in this Congress where you can't even get every single Democratic senator to agree to abolish the filibuster for such a thing. Congress could strip the Supreme Court of jurisdiction over certain issues. The president has some power to push back against a rogue Supreme Court. So if judicial opinions do not enforce themselves, normally people voluntarily comply with them. If someone does not voluntarily comply with a federal court decision, the U.S. Marshals are sent after them. And the U.S. Marshals are under the command of the president. They aren't under the command of the judiciary. So the president could conceivably order the marshals not to enforce a particular decision. That wouldn't bring back Roe v. Wade because, with Roe, you actually need someone to enforce a decision like Roe against the states. But if the court starts striking down federal laws left and right, Biden could say, no, we're not going to enforce them. So there are some things that can be done to push back against a Supreme Court. I mean, as I'm listing them, I also find myself getting uncomfortable with them because, what we want in this country is an independent judiciary. We don't want a situation where the political branches have to, step in and start smashing the courts in order to prevent them from doing something even worse. But given that we have a court that seems to be wholly captured by one political party, I think that Congress and the president need to start thinking more ambitiously about what they can do to rein this court in and show it that it has adult supervision.
Well, Ian, the adverb ambitiously could be construed in many different ways, so I'll allow it to sit there a little open-ended. Looking ahead, as recently as yesterday, there was a lot of drama because the court has agreed to take up a case out of North Carolina dealing with the, quote, independent state legislature. It would give state legislatures sweeping power to set rules for federal elections, even if the state courts say, you know what, those rules are unconstitutional. Ian, what does it say to you that the Supreme Court even agreed to take up this case? Because as a reminder for people, the Supreme Court doesn't have to take up all cases. It has the discretion to cherry pick what it wants to hear.
Yeah, this case is the single greatest threat to U.S. democracy since the January 6th attack. This is a really big deal. So what's at stake here is that, states make election laws just like they make any other kind of election laws. And, state constitutions typically place all kinds of constraints on state legislatures. So first of all, in most states, the governor has the veto power. They can veto a law if they don't like it. The state Supreme Court can enforce the state constitution. And many state constitutions have very, strong protections against gerrymandering, against denying people the right to vote. Some have explicit rules saying that everyone has the right to vote. So, these protections are really important. And what the Supreme Court is threatening to do here is say that the state legislature and only the state legislature and no one else gets to decide how elections are conducted. So no gubernatorial veto potentially, no state Supreme Court stepping in when the legislature violates rules against gerrymandering or against denying people the right to vote. In a state like Wisconsin, which is not just the most important swing state in presidential elections, it's also the state, its state legislature is so gerrymandered that it is basically impossible for Democrats to win it. And that means that the Wisconsin legislature could pass an unvetoable bill which says that the electors, the presidential electors in the state of Wisconsin will go to whoever the Republican nominee is, no matter what. So this is a 5-alarm fire for democracy. Like this is potentially the scariest election law case that the Supreme Court has heard in my lifetime. And I was alive for Bush v. Gore.
And boy, what a depressing way to end your segment. You have to come back because I think we need to spend a little bit more time talking about it. I mean, look, the Supreme Court justices, they've gone on recess. They said, peace out. We're going to drop all of these massive bombs in the last 7 days, starting with Dobbs. Or Bruin, frankly. Let's roll back the clock a little bit. And we're going to say, peace out. We're gone for the summer. But hey, by the way, here's a preview for the insanity that's about to ensue. But Ian Millhauser, without you, we wouldn't be able to know what the hell's going on. So we're so grateful for you to be here today. And we welcome you to come back anytime so we can break it down even more.
Thank you so much.